The sales charts say nobody wants these utes. A few hundred units sold industry-wide this year, buried at the very bottom of every VFA CTS report, sitting below models most people have already forgotten exist. But a low sales number measures one thing only, and it's not whether a ute is actually good to live with. It doesn't measure how roomy the cabin is on a long drive, how settled the ride is over a rough back road, or how straightforward the controls are when you just want to get in and get moving without hunting through a touchscreen menu. I went through the VFA CTS registration figures, the manufacturer pricing sheets, the ANCAP safety database, servicing schedules, and independent reviews from Car Expert, Cars Guide and 4x4 Australia for 6 utes Australians are mostly overlooking right now. I checked fuel figures, warranty terms, ground clearance, towing capacity, and cap price servicing costs alongside the obvious stuff like the drive-away price, because comfort and running costs matter just as much as what's on the window sticker. There's actually a practical upside to buying something everyone else is ignoring, too. Low demand generally means more room to negotiate off the sticker price, less competition for stock, and dealers who are genuinely motivated to move units rather than sit back and let a waiting list do the selling for them. Every one of these 6 is genuinely affordable. Every one of them is currently on sale, or was until very recently. And every one of them earned its spot for the same reason: real, documented comfort and ease of use, not just a low price tag. None of these are the utes getting pushed hard on dealership forecourts or plastered across billboards right now, and that's precisely the point. 6 utes, counting down from the newest and least proven to the one I'd actually put my own money on. Some of these come with a genuine catch worth knowing about before you go anywhere near a dealership, so stick around for the honest parts, not just the sales pitch. Let's get into it. Number 6. Foton Tunland, 2026. Number 6. The Foton Tunland. Foton only returned to the Australian market this year after the best part of a decade away, and the numbers show it. Registrations have sat at roughly 100 units a month since launch, a rough re-entry for a brand trying to rebuild trust from scratch in one of the most competitive vehicle segments in the country. Here's why it's still worth a look. Pricing opens at $39,990 before on-road costs for the entry V7C, rising to $49,990 for the top-spec V9. Every variant runs a 2.0-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder producing 120 kilowatts and 450 newton-meters, backed by a 48-volt mild hybrid system and, notably, a ZF 8-speed automatic sourced from the same German supplier that builds gearboxes for Ranger and Hilux rivals. The V9 variant swaps the more common leaf spring rear end for a multi-link coil sprung setup, which is specifically what smooths out the ride on sealed roads and takes the harshness out of everyday driving that leaf spring utes are known for. Payload sits around 1,050 kilograms depending on grade, brake towing matches the class benchmark at 3,500 kilograms, and ground clearance is a genuinely useful 240 millimeters, with claimed approach and departure angles of 28 and 26 degrees. Every grade also gets a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and a 14.6-inch touchscreen, wide front seats and a rear bench designed with comfort and support in mind rather than as an afterthought, so nothing here feels stripped out despite the price, and combined fuel use is claimed at around 8.0 litres per 100 kilometers. The honest caveat: this generation has only been on Australian roads since mid-2025, so there simply isn't an independent, multi-year ownership record here the way there is for a Hilux or even a Tritown. Foton is backing it with a 7-year, unlimited kilometre warranty, which is a strong signal of confidence, but a warranty on paper isn't the same as a decade of documented reliability, and long-term parts availability through Foton's still-growing dealer network is genuinely untested at this point. If you're comfortable being an early adopter on a genuinely comfortable, well-equipped ute, it's worth cross-shopping. If you want years of owner forum history behind your decision before you sign anything, it's simply too soon to have that, and this one probably isn't for you yet. Number 5. JAC T9, 2026. Number 5. The JAC T9. JAC's overall sales have been sliding hard this year, down more than 50% year-on-year, and the brand's answer was to cut the entry price even further, down to $38,990 drive away for the base Oasis, among the cheapest new dual-cab pricing anywhere in the country right now, with the Haven grade sitting a little higher at $43,990 drive away. What earns the T9 real credibility is that it carries a genuine 5-star ANCAP rating, tested under the tougher 2024 protocol, not an older or borrowed rating from a related model. Power comes from a 2.0-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder, with outputs quoted between 120 and 125 kilowatts and 410 newton-meters depending on the source, paired with an 8-speed ZF automatic and a part-time 4-wheel drive system with a locking rear differential. Payload is a healthy 1,045 kilograms, though brake towing tops out at 3,200 kilograms, a little under the 3,500 kilogram benchmark most rivals on this list can match. Inside, the rear seat has genuinely generous knee room for a ute in this price bracket, along with dual USB charge points and a pull-down center divider with cup holders, though the rear air vents don't get their own separate temperature control. JAC backs it with a 7-year, unlimited kilometer warranty plus 7 years of capped price servicing and roadside assistance, matching or beating most of its rivals on paper, and claimed fuel use sits at a competitive 7.
6 litres per 100 kilometers.
Now the honest part, and it matters a lot given what this list is actually about. An independent 4x4 Australia review of the T9 Haven found the suspension tuned too stiff, describing the ride as harsh and uncomfortable, and noted the engine felt underwhelming compared with rivals, likening the overall driving experience to mid-size utes from 2 decades ago. That's a real, documented criticism from a working test, not a rumor, and it cuts directly against the comfort angle this list is built around. If rock-bottom price and a genuine 5-star safety rating matter most to you, it still deserves a test drive. If day-to-day ride comfort is the deciding factor, go in with your eyes open and actually drive one over rough pavement before you commit, ideally over the same speed humps and potholes you'd actually deal with every week. Number 4. LDV T60, 2026. Number 4. The LDV T60. LDV has been building utes for the Australian market longer than any other Chinese brand here, since 2017. So the T60 isn't an unknown quantity the way some newer entrants are. Current pricing runs from $41,042 for the manual Max Pro up to $53,674 for the top Max Mega Tub Plus, with the popular Auto Pro variant landing around $45,253. The current T60 range runs a 2.0-litre biturbo 4-cylinder diesel producing 160 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, mated to an 8-speed ZF automatic, and it carries a genuine 5-star ANCAP rating with a full driver assist suite as standard, including AEB, which became a legal requirement across the range from March last year. Ground clearance sits around 220 millimeters. Combined fuel use is claimed between 7, 9 and 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers, and brake towing matches the class benchmark at 3,500 kilograms. The cabin has had several years to mature past first-generation rough edges, with a roomier, more settled layout and a genuinely spacious second row compared with the newest Chinese arrivals, and LDV backs it with a 7-year warranty, though notably that's capped at 200,000 kilometers rather than unlimited, unlike several rivals on this list. The honest caveat here is significant, and it's not just a mechanical quirk. LDV Automotive Australia is currently facing legal action from the ACCC over allegations that it misled consumers about the durability and corrosion resistance of the T60. That's a live, documented legal matter, not owner forum speculation, and it's worth reading up on directly before you sign anything, regardless of how good the equipment list looks on paper. Some owners have also reported transmission fluid leaks through breather outlets and seals on certain examples, with the symptom being a refusal to select a gear, so a thorough pre-purchase inspection matters more here than on some rivals, particularly around the transmission housing and any service history showing prior fluid top-ups. Number 3. Milligram U9, 2026. Number 3. The Milligram U9. MG's ute sales have cooled off fast this year, sitting under 1,000 units industry-wide even though the U9 only properly launched in late 2025 with a genuinely modern spec sheet behind it. Pricing opens at $52,990 drive away for the base Explore and tops out at $60,990 for the flagship Explore Pro, noticeably higher than the other Chinese entries on this list, but still well under a comparable Ranger or Hilux. The engineering story here is the real differentiator. The U9 shares its 2.5-litre turbo diesel engine, 8-speed ZF automatic and 4-wheel drive system with the related LDV T9, producing around 160 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, and it carries a 3,500 kilograms brake towing rating and over 1,000 kilograms of payload. But where the T9 sticks with a traditional live rear axle and leaf springs, the U9 uses a multi-link, coil-sprung independent rear suspension, the same layout more commonly found under SUVs than worksite utes, and it's specifically what gives it a noticeably more car-like, settled ride on sealed roads than most rivals on this list. The cabin leans into that same comfort positioning, with a genuinely premium presentation for the segment and a driving position that feels closer to a mid-size SUV than a traditional worksite ute. Ground clearance is claimed at 220 mm in laden, though Milligram itself notes that drops to around 180 mm once the tray is loaded to its maximum, which is worth factoring in if you're regularly carrying heavy gear over rough tracks. The honest caveat: the U9's 5-star ANCAP rating is based on Euro NCAP testing conducted in 2024 on the related electric Maxus e-Terran 9 sold overseas, not on independent local testing of the actual Australian diesel U9 you'd be driving. Milligram says the structure and safety systems carry across, and there's no reason to assume otherwise, but it's a borrowed rating rather than a rating earned by the exact vehicle on the showroom floor, and that distinction is worth knowing rather than assuming. It's also worth noting the U9 skips an automatic emergency call system, a feature that's becoming increasingly common on new vehicles in this price bracket. Number 2. Mahindra Pickup. If you want the exact pricing and registration figures I've pulled together for every ute on this list, in one place, they're linked in the description below. Number 2. The Mahindra Pickup. This one's had the roughest run of the 6. It's been wound down as a new vehicle in Australia this year, phased out ahead of Mahindra's next-generation global ute, though used examples remain readily available through dealers, typically priced from around $31,000 up to $40,000 depending on age and kilometres. The entire pitch has always been mechanical simplicity. A 2.2-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder producing a modest 103 kilowatts and 320 newton meters, paired with a 6-speed automatic that Mahindra only introduced in recent model years, and a cabin that skips almost every non-essential feature in favour of large, simple, physical switches you can operate without looking down. Ground clearance sits at 210 mm, and the fuel tank holds a generous 60 litres, useful for anyone doing longer regional trips between fill-ups. Capped price servicing was famously cheap too, with scheduled visits priced from around $499 at the 10,000-25,000 kilometre marks, rising to $799 at 40,000 kilometres, and a free first service at 5,000 kilometres, backed by a 5-year, 150,000 kilometre warranty. Trade Press has documented at least one pickup in commercial courier service in Newcastle passing 1 million kilometres, with several more in the same fleet not far behind, which says something real and verifiable about how it holds up under constant daily use, not just occasional weekend duty. The honest caveat: the pickup has never been independently crash tested by ANCAP in any generation, so there's no official star rating to point to at all, and brake towing tops out at a modest 2,500 kilograms, well under most rivals on this list, including several others here. If outright safety documentation and heavier towing matter more to you than day-to-day simplicity and a genuinely proven reliability record, this isn't the pick. If straightforward operation and a documented track record of durability matter more, it's the most underrated vehicle on this entire list, and arguably the easiest one here to simply get in and drive without a learning curve, which counts for a lot once the novelty of a bigger touchscreen wears off. Number 1. KGM Musso, 2026. Number 1. The KGM Musso, sold for years under the SsangYong name before the rebrand. Sales are down close to a third this year, sitting at roughly 600 units through to the end of May, yet it's still comfortably outselling several of the newer Chinese entrants on this exact list. That's the real contradiction sitting at the top of this countdown. It's simultaneously one of the most overlooked utes on sale in Australia and one of the most genuinely capable options in this entire lineup. 2026 pricing starts from $42,500 drive away for the ELX, and every single grade comes standard with a 6-speed automatic, so there's no manual-only base model to work around. The engine is a 2.2-litre turbo diesel producing around 133 kilowatts and up to 420 newton meters depending on grade. The cabin is genuinely one of the roomiest in this class, a strength the Musso has carried consistently since its SsangYong days, with a boot and tub capacity that outstrips most direct rivals, and the ride is tuned noticeably softer than most worksite-first rivals, closer to a large SUV than a trader-focused ute. Standard safety equipment across the range includes autonomous emergency braking, lane departure warning and a reversing camera, with higher grades adding blind spot monitoring, rear cross-traffic alert and a full surround view camera system. Backing all of it is a 7-year, unlimited kilometre warranty, the longest ownership promise of any dual-cab ute currently sold in this country, alongside a 7-year capped price servicing program with an average service cost of around $462, genuinely competitive against rivals charging noticeably more per visit. The honest caveat, and it's a real one worth sitting with, the Musso has never been put through ANCAP testing. In any generation it's been sold here, so despite that long list of standard safety tech, there's no independent star rating attached to any of it. The center rear seatbelt is also lap-only rather than a proper lapsash design, which is genuinely dated by current standards. If an official ANCAP rating is non-negotiable for you, that's a real, unresolved gap, full stop. But for everyday comfort, cabin space, ease of use and long-term backup if something does go wrong, nothing else on this list matches it for the money. Here's the thread running through all 6 of these. A low sales number tells you what other buyers chose this year. It doesn't tell you what actually works once you're the one behind the wheel, day after day. On a slow-selling model, that number tells you almost as much about your negotiating position as anything on the spec sheet. If you want the full breakdown of which utes are actually holding their value against these 6, and which ones are quietly losing thousands a year the moment they leave the lot, that's coming in the next video.